Lesson number 1: Philippine literature during the American colonial period. The American colonial period in the Philippines was also the time when knowledge and information became increasingly accessible to more Filipinos. The use of the English language as a mode of instruction in school paved the way for more Filipinos to learn and utilize the language of various forms of communication, especially in writing. Many literary writers in English emerged during this era. Paz Marquez Benitez, Juan F. Salazar, and many others whose literary pieces are still being published and read after many decades. In this lesson, we will find out more about American influence in our literature and culture. Learn about it. A national history can be recalled through political decrees and constitution, laws, and reforms. However, to learn about its core values and spirit as a nation, one must read its literature. Literature reflects the practice, cultures, and reaction of its people to the events around them. Each form, as essay and poetry, will tell you the various emotions and thoughts about these events that lead to shaping the citizen and the nation. On April 11, 1899, the Treaty of Paris came into effect. It was an agreement signed by John Hay, the U.S. Secretary of State, after the Spanish-American War. In this arrangement, Spain surrendered the remaining colonies of the Spanish Empire Cuba, Puerto Rico, Guam, and the Philippines to the United States, which also involved a payment of $20 million to Spain. This is the vocabulary anthology, a published collection of writings by different authors. Apprentice, someone who learns a skill by working for an expert in that field for a fixed period of time. Distinct, easily and noticeably different. Satirical, showing the foolishness, weaknesses, or bad qualities of someone or something through humor.
Aurelio Tolentino, one of the prolific writers during the American colonial period, was Aurelio Tolentino. He was born on October 3, 1867 in Guagua, Pampanga. He also became acquainted with Andres Bonifacio and was imprisoned during the 1896 revolution. Okay, this is the work of Aurelio Tolentino. He helped in printing and distributing the La Solidaridad, the newspaper founded by the Ilustrados Graciano Lopez Jaina, Marcelo H. Del Pilar, and Jose Rizal, who were all in Spain during that time. Aurelio Tolentino wrote The Kahapon, Ngayon at Bukas, and he became the father of Tagalog drama. He was an advocate of using Tagalog as a language that unifies Filipinos from different regions. Because of this, he founded the El Parnaso Filipino, a school that promotes Tagalog literature.
Lesson 3: Philippine Literature During the Japanese Occupation. The Japanese occupation lasted for only 3 years, however, despite their brief rule in the country. They made lasting marks, most especially to our elders who lived through the war. Our literary development paused for a while since there was great censorship in all forms of media. Learn about it. During the World War II, the Philippines was occupied by the Japanese from 1941 to 1945. The occupations of the Philippines began on December 8, 1941, 10 hours after Japan bombed Pearl Harbor in Hawaii. During the war between Japan and the United States, President Manuel L. Quezon and General Douglas MacArthur fled to the U.S., but before leaving, MacArthur made a promise to the Filipino people, "I shall return." This saying is popular up to this day. He came back to Leyte in 1944. The fall of Bataan and Death March, which killed thousands of Filipinos and Americans, were results of the final major battles of the Japanese invasion. Japanese rule in the Philippines began after they subdued all Philippine and American military forces in the country. Victory over Japan Day. VG Day 1945 was declared after Japan surrendered to the United States on August 15, 1945. After this was the inauguration of the First Philippine Republic on July 4, 1946. During the Japanese occupation, there was only a limited number of Filipino literature in English that was written and published. However, Philippine literature in general flourished in this period, especially those that were written in Tagalog and other Philippine language. English plays during this period were translated into Filipino or the vernacular. Plays were also one of the more popular forms of entertainment because the Japanese banned American films. A number of original dramas in Filipino were written during this period. For example, Francisco Sac Rodrigo wrote Sapula sa Puti, which is being read in school until now. Josema Fernandez wrote Panday Pira, while Julian Cruz Balmaceda wrote Sino Ba Kayo? And Dahil sa Anak. Meanwhile, Filipino writers of other literary forms, such as short stories, essays, and poetry were given distinct honor. Pulitzer Prize recipient Carlos P. Romulo had his bestseller, "I Saw the Fall of the Philippines," "I See the Philippines Rise," and "Mother America," and "My Brother Americans." Notable short story writers in this era were Mercario Pineda and V.M. Gonzales, Ligayo Reyes, and Gloria Guzman, to name a few. In poetry, Fred Ruiz Castro and Francisco Icasiano were only two of the prominent poets of the time. Without Seeing the Dawn, a novel written by Stephen Javellana, was published in the United States in 1947. It depicts the experience of Filipinos during the war between the Americans and the Japanese. This novel was later on adapted into a movie entitled Santiago, which was directed by Lino Broca and starred Fernando Poe Jr. and Helda Coronel. Among the most gruesome stories during the war were those about comfort women, and among them was Maria Rosa Henson, or Nana Rosa as she was fondly known. She wrote an autobiography, Comfort Women, Slave of Destiny, which was published in 1996. Some famous Filipino writers who lived during this period were Benvenido Santos, Manuel Argilla, Marcelo Agana Jr., and Nick Joaquin.
Lesson 4: Filipino author during the Japanese occupation, Manuel Argilla. Many writers went underground during the Japanese period, as Victoria Abelardo described this era of Filipino writing. The Japanese occupation was pessimistic and bitter. However, despite these dark times, more Filipino writers proved that their nationalism and spirit as a writer never faltered. One of these writers was Manuel Argilla, whose work is continually included in school discussion. Manuel Argilla, one of the famous Filipino writers in English during the Commonwealth period. He was born in La Union on June 17, 1911. He was the editor-in-chief of their school new letter La Union Tab in high school. In 1933, he earned an education degree at the University of the Philippines and the president of UP Writers Club. an editor of Literary Apprentice and welfare advocate. The publication of Bureau of Public Welfare, where he worked after teaching in the University of Manila. Vocabulary: local color, the presentation of features, characteristics, and object of particular community. Point of view: the perspective of someone's narration or someone who narrates the story. Vanish: to disappear completely in an instant.